The secret of human mating shocked the alien girl to tears. The alien ship moved slowly above the blue planet, a world filled with water, green lands, and bright skies. The young alien girl named Celira stood inside the observation chamber, her large eyes fixed on Earth. Her people had always been told that humans were dangerous, wild creatures who relied on violence and chaos. She was curious but also cautious, because her assignment was unlike any she had received before. She had been chosen to study humans, directly to learn their habits, their strengths, and their weaknesses. Her people were advanced in technology, yet empty in spirit. They valued only order, rules, and survival. Emotions were seen as flaws, distractions that made minds weak. Celira was taught since childhood that attachment, love, and compassion had no purpose. For her, life had always been a line of duties with no place for feelings. And yet, as the ship lowered closer to Earth's surface, she could not ignore a strange excitement that moved inside her chest. She did not understand it, but it was there. The first human she saw was a boy no older than 20 years. He was sitting under a tree, sketching on a piece of paper. Celira was surprised. In her world, free time was forbidden. Every moment was for training, study, or service. Here was a creature spending time making shapes on paper, with no direct reason, no logical purpose. She found it confusing but also fascinating. Why would a species waste precious time drawing when survival was the ultimate rule of existence? She descended carefully, hiding her form with a field of light that bent around her. She stood close, unseen, watching the boy. His face was calm, his lips curved slightly in what humans called a smile. She had read about smiles in her training files, but seeing one in real life gave her a strange sensation. It was not threatening, it was not hostile. It was gentle, as if he carried a secret happiness within him. She felt her throat tighten with questions she could not voice. The boy stopped drawing and looked up, not at her, but at the sky. His eyes held wonder, a simple but deep awe at the world around him. Celira's people never looked at the sky unless to measure routes for travel. They never stopped to admire anything. Beauty to them was meaningless. And yet this human boy stared at the endless blue above as if it gave him strength. She did not understand, and that lack of understanding began to bother her. She turned, away intending to return to her ship with her first notes, but something made her stop. A sound carried across the air, laughter. Another human had arrived, a girl close to the boy's age. She ran toward him with a light step, her hair moving in the wind. The boy's face lit up with joy when he saw her. Celira felt her chest tighten again. The two humans greeted each other with warmth. They spoke in words she could not yet follow, but the meaning was clear even without translation. There was trust between them. There was closeness. Celira activated her translator, a device hidden inside her suit. The voices became clear, the words now understandable. "You are late," the boy said with playful tone. "You always say that," the girl replied, smiling wider. "But I am here now." They both laughed together, and Celira tilted her head. This exchange made no logical sense to her. They wasted energy on noise, on words that served no purpose, and yet they seemed stronger together. The boy gave the girl the paper he had been drawing on. She looked at it, and her eyes shined with tears. Celira leaned forward in disbelief. What was this? Why did water fall from her eyes if she was not in pain? The girl hugged the boy tightly. Celira had read of human contact, physical touch, but seeing it unfold before her eyes gave it new weight. Their arms around each other, their hearts close, their warmth shared. It was more than survival. It was connection. She whispered to herself in her own language, a word that meant unnecessary. Yet in her heart, it did not feel unnecessary. The humans left soon after, walking together toward the village beyond the field. Celira stayed under the tree, staring at the paper the boy had left behind, forgotten on the ground. She stepped closer, picked it up with trembling fingers, and studied it. It was not a map, not a formula, not a design for survival. It was a picture of the girl, her face drawn with careful detail, every line showing affection. Salira's eyes widened. This was not just art. This was a piece of him, a part of his feeling made visible. She felt her throat tighten again, but this time it hurt more. She placed the drawing back down and returned to her ship. Inside the silence of the chamber, she tried to record her findings. Her voice, however, shook. "First contact report," she said softly. "Humans waste time on unnecessary actions. They express strange sounds and physical contact. They shed water from their eyes without pain. Their behavior is illogical." Her words stopped, and for a moment she sat quietly. Images of the boy and girl lingered in her mind. The drawing, the smile, the hug, the laughter. They should have been dismissed as meaningless. Yet they echoed inside her with a weight she could not push away. For the first time in her life, Salira doubted the teachings of her people. For the first time, she felt that humans might not be dangerous because of their weapons, but because of something far more powerful, and she realized with a shiver that she had only just begun to see it. Salira could not rest. Back inside the cold halls of her ship, the silence pressed against her like a heavy wall. Her people valued silence because it was efficient. No wasted words, no wasted sound. Yet after her first encounter with the humans, she found silence uncomfortable. The echo of laughter and the image of the human boy's drawing refused to leave her thoughts. She told herself it was only data, only research, but her heart disagreed. Something inside her demanded to see more. She left the ship again the next day, cloaked in the bending light that hid her form. She moved through the trees and fields, searching for humans. Soon she found them in a village. The place was alive in ways she had never seen. Children ran and shouted without order, chasing one another with no goal but joy. Women spoke together, exchanging words with smiles on their faces. Men worked with tools, building and repairing, yet they sang as they did so. Salira stood in the middle of this, invisible, and felt a strange unease. Her people worked in silence, every movement calculated and sharp. Here humans added sound, smiles, touches. They did not act as machines. They acted as something else, something she could not yet define. She followed the boy she had first seen. His name was Daniel. She had learned it from the girl who called to him in the field. The girl's name was Anna. Salira whispered their names as if testing them. Her language was sharp and metallic, but their names rolled smoothly across her tongue, strange but pleasant. Daniel and Anna walked together by the river. Salira kept her distance, listening with her translator. "Why do you draw me?" Anna asked, her voice soft. "Because when I look at you, I feel something I want to remember," Daniel replied. Salira frowned. "Feel something?" In her world, nothing was remembered unless it served survival. Equations, formulas, maps. Those were worthy of memory. But this boy drew her face because of a feeling? Salira wanted to laugh at the absurdity, but instead she felt a weight in her chest again. Anna looked away, embarrassed. "It makes me cry sometimes. Not sad tears, just... I do not know why." Daniel touched her hand gently. Salira leaned closer, her eyes wide. The girl allowed it, her face softening as she looked at him. This small contact carried a meaning Salira could not understand. Her people touched only in necessity, during training or when carrying tools. But here it was different. It was not survival. It was something deeper. That night, Salira recorded again. Observation log. Humans use physical contact without function. They create images not for survival but for memory. Their behaviors are illogical, yet they appear stronger when together. Their bond increases their resolve. She stopped, frustrated. These words did not satisfy her. They were flat, lifeless. They did not carry the force she had felt while watching them. For the first time, she doubted her own report. Days passed. Salira kept returning. She saw Daniel helping Anna carry water. She saw Anna giving food to a child not her own. She saw old humans telling stories around fire and young ones listening with wide eyes. Every act confused her more. Why waste food? Why waste time? Why waste breath on stories that had no value in battle or survival? And yet she felt drawn to them. Something about their waste was making them stronger than her people. One evening, Scifi stood at the edge of the village as rain fell. She was not prepared for the water, but she did not move. She saw Anna and Daniel sheltering under a roof, laughing as the drops touched their faces. Daniel lifted his hand and let the rain run down his skin, showing Anna as if it was some kind of treasure. Scifi raised her own hand and felt the water slide down her alien skin. It was only liquid. It was nothing. But why did her chest ache again when she saw the joy in their faces? Later, she sat alone in the forest, whispering questions to herself. Why do they cry without pain? Why do they laugh without reason? Why do they touch when it changes nothing? Why do they waste so much and yet seem stronger than us? Her answers did not come. Instead, tears formed in her own eyes, something she had never experienced. In her people's world, no one cried. Pain was controlled. Emotion was erased. But here in the silence of the forest, she felt her vision blur with drops she did not understand. She touched her cheek in disbelief, wiping the water away. For the first time, Scifi was afraid of what she was learning. Afraid, but also unable to turn back. The next morning, she decided she could no longer only watch. She needed to ask. She needed to speak to a human directly. She needed to understand the truth behind their strange power, their strange secret. And so Scifi prepared herself. She shut off her cloak of light, knowing the humans would see her. Her heart, though trained to beat steady, raced wildly inside her chest. She had studied countless worlds, but never had she felt fear like this. She stepped out of the forest, her form revealed, and the first human who saw her was Daniel. He froze, his eyes wide with shock, the sketchbook falling from his hand. Scifi looked at him and whispered, "I want to know. I want to know why you are not like us." The secret she had been chasing was finally about to be answered. Daniel did not move at first. His breath caught in his chest and his hands trembled slightly as he stared at the figure before him. Scifi stood in the rain, her cloak gone, her alien form uncovered. Her skin was pale with a faint silver glow, her eyes larger than human eyes, deep and unblinking. She looked fragile but also strange, as if she did not belong to the world around her. Daniel bent down slowly, picked up his sketchbook and kept his eyes on her. "You are not from here," he said, his voice careful. Scifi's translator made sense of his words, and she nodded. "I am not human, but I have watched you. I must understand you. I must understand this." Her voice shook at the last word, as if even speaking it unsettled her. Daniel frowned. "Understand what?" Scifi's eyes moved toward the village where she had seen humans laugh, cry, and touch. "Why you hold each other. Why you shed water from your eyes without pain. Why you draw faces not for survival but for memory. Why you waste energy yet grow stronger. None of this has sense." Daniel blinked at her honesty. He had never thought someone would question these things because for him, they were simply life. Slowly, he walked closer. "We do these things because they matter to us. Why?" Scifi asked at once. Her voice was sharp, almost desperate. "Why do they matter? What do they give you?" "In my people's world, nothing matters except survival. Every action must serve the whole. But you..." She stepped closer, her silver eyes unblinking. "You risk weakness. You risk wasting time. You risk pain. Why?" Daniel's lips pressed together. He could see the tension in her face, the way her shoulders trembled though she tried to stand tall. She was not only curious, she was lost. Finally, he took a breath and answered, "Because without it, life is empty." Scifi's chest tightened at those words. Empty. She knew emptiness. Her life had been built on it, orders, duty, silence, but she had never thought it could be different. "Explain," she whispered. Daniel sat on a stone and motioned for her to sit as well. For a moment she hesitated, then joined him. The rain fell softly now, the drops sliding down leaves and stones. "Humans," Daniel said slowly, "do not live only to survive. We live to feel, to share, to connect. When I draw Anna, it is not for food or shelter. It is to keep her face with me even when she is not near. When she cries with me, it is because her heart feels too much and it must leave her eyes. When we hold hands, it is because we want to remind each other that we are not alone." Scifi stared at him. His words made no sense, yet they hit her like waves. "Not alone," she repeated. Her people never spoke of such things. They were always alone, even in groups, together in body but never in spirit. Daniel nodded. When two humans choose each other, it is not only for children. It is for something bigger. We make promises. We give trust. We build something that is not seen, but it is there. That is what makes us strong. It is why we fight, why we live. Love. The word fell heavy into Celira's ears. Her translator gave the meaning, but it was not enough. The device could not show the warmth in his eyes when he spoke it. She felt her throat tighten. Love, she said, testing the sound. It is not survival. It is not logic. Then what is it? Daniel smiled faintly. It is the reason we survive. The reason we keep going when life is hard. It is our secret strength. Celira turned away, her eyes wet. She touched her cheek again, shocked to find tears. She had thought it only happened to humans. But no, here she was crying. She whispered, "My people call this weakness." Daniel shook his head. It is not weakness. It is power. When you love, you can do more than you ever thought. You protect, you endure, you fight harder than logic can explain. That is why we matter to each other. That is why we are human. Silence fell between them. Celira felt the ground tilt beneath her, as if her entire world had shifted. Everything she had been told since birth was now broken. Love was not in her people's lessons. Connection was never allowed. Yet here, in this small village, she had seen it with her own eyes, and now this boy had given it a name. She rose suddenly, her chest burning. "I do not understand," she said, her voice sharp but weak beneath the surface. "But I cannot ignore it." She stepped back, looking at Daniel with wide, uncertain eyes. "If this is your strength, then my people will fear it. They will never accept it." Daniel stood as well. His voice was calm but strong. "Maybe they fear it because they know it is stronger than anything else." Celira's hands clenched. She wanted to argue, but no words came. She wanted to run, but her legs held her still. She had spent days observing, recording, analyzing, and yet in one conversation the human boy had broken her. She felt both weaker and stronger at once. The rain stopped. The clouds parted and the sun spilled across the land. Celira looked up at the light and whispered the word again. Love. It sounded strange in her mouth, but it carried weight. She looked back at Daniel, who met her gaze with patience. In that moment, Celira knew she could not return to her ship unchanged. She had come to study humans, but instead she had begun to unravel herself. Celira returned to her ship that night with her thoughts burning like fire. She sat inside the silent chamber, staring at her reflection in the glass wall. The alien eyes that looked back at her no longer felt familiar. They belonged to someone she did not fully recognize anymore. She replayed Daniel's words again and again. Love. Power through connection. Tears without pain. Touch without function. It was madness. Yet why did it feel more real than anything her people had taught her? For the next days, Celira kept watching the humans. But now she did not only observe, she felt. Each moment struck her deeper than before. She saw Anna wake before sunrise to prepare food for her family, even when her own body was tired. She saw Daniel work on broken tools, his hands rough but his face calm, because he wanted to help his neighbor. None of these things made sense as survival tactics. They shared, they sacrificed, and in doing so they grew stronger together. One afternoon, Celira followed Daniel and Anna beyond the village. They walked through the forest, carrying baskets. Celira stayed close, invisible, her translator catching their words. "Why do you always smile even when you are tired?" Anna asked Daniel. Daniel laughed softly. "Because when you are near, I forget the tiredness." Celira stopped in her tracks. "Forget tiredness?" She whispered the words to herself. In her world, exhaustion was measured, calculated, endured. But here, a smile, a presence erased it. Her throat tightened again, and she pressed her hand against her chest as if to calm the strange ache inside. The two humans reached a small hill where the sun was setting. They sat together, their baskets forgotten, watching the sky turn red and gold. Celira crouched in the shadows, staring at them. She thought they would speak of food, of tasks, of plans. But instead, Daniel whispered, "I want to be here forever with you." Anna's eyes filled with tears. She leaned her head on his shoulder, silent. But her silence carried more meaning than any words Celira had heard. The two did not move for a long time. They simply sat, breathing together, holding each other as the day died around them. Celira's eyes burned, and before she realized it, water slid down her cheeks again. She tried to stop it, but she could not. For the first time, she understood that humans did not need logic to be strong. They needed each other. That night, Celira tried to write her report. She began with her usual words. Observation log. Humans continued to waste time. She stopped. Her voice shook. She stared at the recorder and whispered, No, this is not waste. She shut the recorder off and sat in silence, her hands trembling. Her people would call this corruption. They would call her broken. But deep inside, she knew she had seen the truth. The true shock came the next day. A storm fell upon the village, fierce and merciless. Rain poured, wind screamed, trees bent under the force. Celira stayed cloaked and hidden, watching as the humans struggled to protect their homes. Roofs lifted, walls shook, animals cried. Panic filled the air. Daniel and Anna fought to tie down a roof cover. The wind tore it from their hands, nearly sweeping Anna off her feet. Daniel caught her just in time, pulling her into his arms. I will not let go, he shouted over the storm. She clung to him, her face pressed into his chest, her tears mixing with the rain. Celira stood frozen. She expected them to run for their own lives. But Daniel did not leave Anna behind, and Anna did not leave Daniel. They chose to risk the storm together rather than survive apart. Then Celira saw something even stranger. An older woman's home began to collapse. Without hesitation, Daniel left the cover of his own shelter and ran into the storm to help her. Anna cried after him, but then followed, her fear smaller than her need to stand beside him. Together, they pulled the woman out just as the roof caved in. They were soaked, exhausted, faces pale with fear, but their hands never let go of each other. Celira's breath caught. She whispered to herself, Why? Why risk death for another? Why risk everything for someone else's life? She pressed her hands against her face, shaking. This was beyond logic, beyond calculation. This was something her world had never known. When the storm finally passed, the village stood broken but alive. Families gathered, holding each other. Daniel and Anna sat by the fire, their clothes torn, their faces dirty, but their eyes filled with relief. Anna cried softly, and Daniel kissed her forehead. Celira felt her entire body tremble. In that moment, she understood. The humans' greatest secret was not in their weapons, not in their science, not even in their survival. It was in their willingness to give themselves to one another. It was in the bond that tied them together, stronger than fear, stronger than pain. Celira turned away, covering her face as tears streamed freely. She was an alien, trained to live without emotion, but now she wept like a human. Her people had always called emotions weakness. But here, in this small village, she had discovered the truth. Emotions were not weakness. They were the very thing that made humans powerful. The shock of it tore her apart inside. She could never return to her people the same. She had found something they had lost long ago. She had found the secret of human mating. It was not just about life continuing. It was about souls binding, hearts choosing, and strength born from love. For Celira, the discovery was too much to hold. And so she cried under the fading light, the alien girl with tears streaming like rain. Celira did not sleep. The storm had ended, but its memory echoed through her mind louder than thunder. She had seen humans fight wind and rain, not with weapons, not with machines, but with their arms wrapped around one another. She had seen them risk death for people who were not even family. It was not logic that saved them. It was something else, something her people had erased centuries ago. She stood at the edge of the village, her cloak still hiding her form, though her tears had long betrayed her. She thought she could control them, but they came freely now, falling down her cheeks like rivers. She pressed her palms against her face, whispering in her own language words that translated to nothing but confusion. She felt weak, broken, but also alive in a way she had never known. In the morning, she revealed herself again. The villagers gasped, frightened at first, but Daniel stepped forward quickly. His hand rose steady, and he told them not to fear. She is not here to harm us, he said firmly. She only wants to understand. Celira lowered her cloak, her silver glow soft in the morning light. Her chest rose and fell quickly, but she held her place. Dozens of human eyes stared at her, their fear mixed with curiosity. She had never been the subject of so many stares. For a moment, she wanted to turn and flee back into the forest. But then she remembered the storm. She remembered the hands that never let go. She remembered the firelight in Daniel's eyes when he spoke of love. And she stayed. Anna stepped closer, her voice calm but questioning. Why are you here? Celira's lips trembled before words came. To learn. To see why you are strong when you should be weak. To see why you hold each other even when it brings pain. Her voice cracked, the translator shaking under her trembling tone. To understand why tears fall from my eyes when I watch you, the villagers whispered among themselves. Some looked at her with pity, others with awe. Daniel, however, only nodded.
And now?
He asked. Salira turned her head slowly, looking at the faces gathered. Mothers holding children. Husbands and wives leaning on each other after the storm. Friends working together to clear the broken branches. She saw scars, dirt, exhaustion, but behind it all she saw warmth. She had lived her entire life among her people without ever seeing such light. Now I know, she said softly. Your secret is not your tools or your bodies. It is not your weapons. It is this. She raised her trembling hand toward them. It is the bond you share. The way you give yourselves to one another. The way you love. The word shook as it left her lips, but it was true. She felt it. A silence fell. Then Anna stepped forward and, to Salira's shock, placed her hand gently on Salira's arm. The alien girl froze, staring down at the soft human touch. It was not forced. It was not necessary. It was simply given. Salira's chest broke open and tears spilled again. I thought this was weakness, she whispered. But it is not. It is the greatest strength I have ever seen. Daniel's voice was firm. Then take it with you. If your people do not know it, tell them. Show them what you have seen. Salira's heart twisted. She imagined standing before her leaders, speaking of love, of tears, of laughter. They would call her diseased. They would strip her of rank, erase her memories, perhaps even end her life. But then she remembered Anna in the storm, refusing to let Daniel face danger alone. She remembered Daniel choosing to risk his life for the old woman. Fear still lived in her chest, but beside it now lived courage, a courage born from what she had witnessed. She lifted her head. I will tell them. Even if they do not listen, I will tell them. Because I cannot return to emptiness, not after seeing this. The villagers said nothing at first. Then slowly a child stepped out from behind his mother. He walked up to Salira and offered her a small flower. She looked down at it, her hand shaking, and accepted it. The boy smiled. That smile, so small and pure, tore away the last walls inside her. She sank to her knees and wept openly, her sobs breaking through the translator's calm voice. For the first time, Salira allowed herself to feel fully, and it left her shaking but alive. The humans gathered around, not with fear but with quiet acceptance. They saw her tears not as weakness but as proof that she understood. In that moment, she was no longer only an alien. She was part of something greater, something shared. Later, as the sun began to rise high, Salira stood at the edge of the field once more. Daniel walked with her. Will you return to them? He asked. Yes, she said quietly, but I return different. I return carrying something they have forgotten. She looked at him, her silver eyes softer now. I return carrying love. Daniel smiled gently. Then you carry the strongest weapon of all. Salira turned her gaze back to the horizon. For the first time in her life, the emptiness inside her was gone, replaced by a fire she could not fully understand but would never let go of. She stepped toward her ship, the flower still clutched in her hand, her tears drying slowly. She knew her journey was only beginning, and the truth she carried would shake her people. But in her heart she also knew this. She had been changed forever by the humans, by their laughter, by their pain, by their strength through love. And as the alien girl disappeared into the sky, she cried once more, not from sorrow but from the heavy, beautiful realization that she had discovered the greatest secret of all.